The Cape is the most stately thing and the fairest cape we saw in the whole circumference of the earth. So said the explorer Francis Drake, and that was way back in 1580. 400 odd years later, and the same might be said, probably is said, by anyone setting eyes on Cape Town for the very first time. For the second and third time too. South Africa's most sought after city is not just staggering in its spectacle, it's interesting too. Look beyond its extraordinary vistas and yes, it takes a while before you can. Remnants of its incredibly complicated history remain, but Cape Town is also a city that has capitalized on its beauty, one that knows how to live and most critically knows how to eat. From the quaint to the kitschy, from the touristy to the traditional, a single day, as I discovered, can take you from one extreme to the other. The best thing then to do is to amble around and let something just catch your eye. In this case, it was the fact that the cafe chose to call itself Dear Me. The very fact that distress was their lead-in had me intrigued enough to step inside. And I will say at first glance, no reason to say dear me that I could see. It's cheerful and charming, open and airy with just a little splash of whimsy. I needed to get to the bottom of this.
It's called Dear Me because it was mainly created to focus on people with strict dietary requirements.
Right.
People with allergies and things like that.
Right. So basically avoiding people coming here, taking a bite and saying, dear me.
Yes.
Everything's organic and free.
Yeah.
But the menu changes on a regular basis.
Right.
So it's almost to cater for everything
Okay.
that is in season.
All
so
right.
we showcase all of that stuff.
Alright then, I'm in. The offerings look pretty good, so I settle in for a bite and a sip. Ginger and orange juice to start, that's fresh and brisk enough to stand in for coffee. Then this, their trout bruschetta with sour cream and deep fried capers. Plump juicy fish, crisp bread, salty capers. This is terrific. Fresh, sunny fare.
So the bruschetta is good, do not get me wrong. But the game changer is these giant deep fried capers like little bombs of crunch and salt. Oh.
Speaking of bombs, the cauliflower risotto is next with cheese, cream, truffle and duck eggs. It's luscious, fatty, decadent and probably more dangerous than it sounds. But me, I eat danger for breakfast. Clearly. Because up next is the equally lethal burger. In-house bread and a burger that's 1 part beef, 1 part bacon, all parts delicious. Look at that. Such bright, happy food.
House-made ciabatta, handmade patties, beef bacon, caramelized onions, cheese. This, folks, in case you haven't done the math already, this is good burger.
Another sunshiny plate of lemon, berries and grapefruit to finish things off, and it's back to the streets for me to revel in a city that has seen and now celebrates the convergence of so many cultures. And if I haven't said it enough already, that's something that always leads to tremendous culinary rewards. Take the Roundhouse, a restaurant named for the building it sits in, a historic building that traces back to the 1700s. Its location is unbeatable, its views exceptional, and so it is appropriate, as we chose to take advantage of the weather with an alfresco setting, that this is also a place that specializes in heritage food. A term that here winds up covering a lot of ground.
The Dutch first colonized this area and they landed here in 1652.
Right.
And they brought with them Indonesian, Javan laborers, tradespeople.
Right.
And a lot of the Cape Malay influence stemmed from there.
Right.
Later, the native Dutch became what we know as the Afrikaans people today. And there's also some food that stemmed from their way of cooking.
Right.
The Khoi people who were here long before the Dutch came, they used all of the herbs.
Fynbos.
Fynbos, rooibos, you might know.
Rooibos.
Buchu, all of
Spekboom.
these. Spekboom.
I've been doing my homework.
You have been. All of these traditional things that were used as medical and obviously to cook with.
I'm intrigued, more so as the portions arrive. This, I'm told, is a meal that celebrates many of the different facets that make up South African fare. What should I start with then? I think perhaps this. Plate of tripe. Yes, tripe. Stomach that's been stewed for several hours. Don't let it turn yours. It's great. Chewy, yes, but I actually like that. The gravy is comforting and hearty, and you should know this is the dish you won't get everywhere.
Nice and spicy, it's got an interesting texture. What do you think?
I think delicious.
Good.
And tripe is again going back to...
Tripe goes back to very old traditions, and it was obviously the part of the animal that was waste,
Right.
and hence the word offal, which means to fall off.
No.
But with things being today, you pay the same price for tripe as you pay for the rest
For oxtail.
of the carcass.
Yeah.
And the same with oxtail.
Yes.
In the old days, they couldn't give it away.
It's hard to fathom as I dive into the truly remarkable oxtail. Braised for several hours, it's melting, meaty, every mouthful round and robust. I take their advice and have it with the samp and beans, a local grain that's mild and nutty and is the perfect foil for this wonderful plate of meat.
That oxtail is amazing.
The oxtail cooks for 6 hours. Samp and beans is an African traditional meal.
Traditional African.
Yes, and it was usually made
And the grains are the samp and beans, and they've just been slowly prepared over the fire.
same, yeah, and also that they add meat to it, but this one is just plain.
Right.
So traditional accompaniment to your meat dishes.
So good, so very good, so very lekker. So very, very baya lekker, which means it's so very, 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 very good. Awesome stuff. Just rich, hearty, all that wonderful, complex, close to the bone meatiness.
Now it's time to try their biryani, or is it actually biryani? It all looks familiar, doesn't it? Down to the raita, the kachumbar, even the achar. They call it achar, and yes, it tastes a lot like home.
There is a difference though.
Yeah.
India,
It's mostly chili.
many years ago, the Indians came over as indentured laborers to
Right.
work on the sugarcane fields.
Oh.
And they were Indians from India. It's added texture to our food,
Yeah.
and it's added variation to our food.
I mean, I could go round and round like the house this place is named for, but bottom line is this. This is food with, centuries behind it, right? Which is always exciting. More critically, it's food that you just want to have a little bit more of. So I will.
Which leaves me with just enough room for some of their Cape Malay pickled fish. A dish that though I've tried it only once before, I'm already a fan of. And evidently it's one of those things that can only improve on better acquaintance. This is the kind of meal you travel for, one where every bite is somehow more. Then again, how could it be otherwise?
And then you
Historic.
can tell a story about it, and there's a narrative around the food,
Yeah.
which is important. I believe food tastes better
Yeah.
if there's a story attached to it,
Agreed.
and if it comes from the heart.
Truer words, and words that I think apply equally to this. The Mount Nelson Hotel. The Pink Lady, as it's known, is not just one of the city's most iconic. It has operated as a hotel since 1899. It is also the blushing host to easily one of the most decadent affairs the city has to offer. I'm not kidding. If the years of British rule left one legacy that is officially worth celebrating, it would have to be this: high tea. Only this is not an ordinary high tea. It's the Motherlode. I have been to candy stores with fewer sweet somethings. Willy Wonka would weep in shame. No, you just look at that. The most exhaustive, borderline obscene manifestation of a sugarholic secret fantasy as I have ever seen. Pink perfect Paris breasts, pastry you wouldn't believe, cakes, creams, fondant, chocolate, fruit, deep fried decadence, tarts and curds and pies, oh my! Don't look now, people, I'm about to make a fool of myself. With the first stage of my haul in place, I all but collide with Xavier Lablod, the general manager, who's kind enough to join me and tell me about the details. The ones that I admit I had lost in the supreme sea of sweet.
This is an extraordinary thing.
There's plenty to eat.
And the official title holder for Understatement of the Century can be announced.
My first question, has anyone ever eaten every single thing that you serve?
I'm sure it's happened. Do I know that person yet?
No.
No, because they probably had to leave in an ambulance, probably.
I think that's probably fair.
There's about 35 to 40 items on the buffet. And then after, you also have the savories that are served on tier stands. And when you get the savories, I think they're about to come now.
Oh yes, did I mention I get savories too? Right here at the table. Scones as well. Thick with clotted cream or dollops of the lemon curd you can just help yourself to.
I mean, the thing is, it's not just about quantity, though, my God, it's about quantity too. Everything you have is actually excellent. The pastries are phenomenal, from the buttercream to the ganache to the clotted cream, the lemon curd, the scones themselves. Just, I mean, so good.
Then of course it's time to turn to my rather piled high plates. Peanut buttery chocolate goodness of wonderful dakwas with passion fruit and chocolate, marvellous little madeleines, things with red velvet, things with nuts, things with more cream or chocolate than I have had in a while. And mind you, a few surprises too.
There has always been a strong English influence to the hotel, but now I think it's part of the heritage. But there's also other influences, because in Cape Town and South Africa is a multicultural country. So in Cape Town you have the Cape Malays, you have the Afrikaans, you have the blacks.
Yeah.
So it's a multicultural country and city, which makes it beautiful, I think. And so the afternoon tea is definitely like an English, but we also have a few South African touches.
Yeah.
So there's a few examples in your sweets plate right there. These are called
Sisters.
exactly. So they're typical from Cape Town.
Right.
There's a lot of Malay influence in Cape Town, so that's a typical example.
Sisters aside, creamy custardy slices of a quintessential Cape Town treat, the milk tart. And oh yes, more besides.
There's other things here. These little sandwiches have biltong, which is a
The
specialty, cured meat, a specialty from South Africa.
Biltong sandwiches, mini quiches, smoked salmon from Francho, good old-fashioned egg sandwiches, summer rolls. Is there no end to the insanity? What a silly question. Of course there isn't.
This is the kind of tea that will ruin you for every other. This is the kind of tea that Queen Elizabeth probably doesn't get to sit down to. I mean, really.
Then you're probably wondering, what about the tea that goes with the high tea? There are dozens to choose from. We settled on 2.
And after, of course, the tea, we have rooibos, which is a special tea from South Africa. And then this is our special Mount Nelson blend.
Oh, so nice.
Which has some rose petals in it.
They're wonderful, fragrant, floral, like everything else here. Quite fabulous.
On a serious note, I realized that I have for a while been appearing as though I am mildly delirious. The fact is, I am mildly delirious. I have rarely, if ever, been served this much food, this much terrific food, because here is the point. It's not just that there's so much, it's that so much of it is so good. Everything, the roast beef, the salmon, the pastries, the buttercreams, the ganache, it's all just so much.